The Holistic Self-Assessment, Chapter 4, Habits. Questions. What are my habits? Are they aligned with my principles and goals? Where am I inconsistent with my words and actions? Now that you have an understanding of yourself, your guiding principles, and your goals, you can begin to examine your own daily behaviors and look for anything that does not align with your vision of your true self. With this chapter, you will begin to identify areas of inconsistency in your personal habits. A habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. Habits can be positive, and they can also lead to negative outcomes. Habits can come in the form of your vices, drug abuse, gambling, compulsive sexual behaviors, your diet, your work schedule, or your reactive emotional responses to various external stimuli. When a habit becomes ingrained into your subconscious, you will naturally perform the act without much thought. After a time, the practice seems so instinctual that it is often referred to as a person's second nature. If you have developed a second nature that is made up of unhealthy personal, spiritual, and physical habits, it's likely you are unhealthy in your personal life, spirit, and physical body. This is because your life is the result of billions of small choices you make throughout your time on this planet. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes and drift into your dream world, you are constantly making choices that affect the direction of your life. The little things do, in fact, matter, and you can greatly alter your path by zeroing in on your daily habits and practices. By putting intentional thought into what you do from morning to night and asking yourself whether or not your habits are in line with who you want to be, you are taking a powerful step towards becoming the best version of yourself. As you look at your habits, refer back to your principles. Do your habits align with the golden rule or the principle of self-ownership? Do you think your regular practices will empower or endanger the coming 7 generations? Are your habits in line with the other guiding principles in your life? Another important practice in the self-assessment process is comparing your goals with your habits. Are your current habits compatible with your short-term and long-term goals? For example, let's say under goals, you noted that you wanted to learn to speak a foreign language. You wrote down some practical steps you can take in the first month and planned out goals for the next year. It's possible that as you start to look at your habits, you might realize that although you really do want to learn a new language, you have not taken any concrete steps to do so. Instead, you see that your habits include spending free time, which could be used for learning a language, scrolling social media, and sleeping. If these habits continue, it is clear you will not achieve your goal, or at least not as quickly as you might like to. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. If your goal is to lose 10 pounds before the summer, but your habits involve eating pizza every day and a serious lack of physical activity, you are unlikely to achieve your goal. Let's further imagine your goals involve emotional growth, perhaps changing a destructive emotional habit. Maybe you struggle with negative self-talk, and you wrote that you would like to see yourself free of limiting, doubting thoughts and language. You listed concrete goals for 1 month and 6 months. You are extremely successful at developing a more compassionate and loving dialogue with yourself over the first couple of months. However, after you pass the 6-month mark, you no longer have regular goals and check-ins with yourself to ensure that you continue to treat yourself with love and respect. After a couple months pass, you completely forget about your original intention. You realize you are back in the habit of communicating with yourself in an unhealthy manner. These unhealthy habits will find ways to reassert themselves, possibly as other unhealthy behaviors, until you take the time to identify the underlying issues that lead to these negative habits. We will explore this further in Chapter 7. I don't mean to imply that you need to use to-do lists and goal charts for the rest of your life, but it's worth considering some method of identifying and organizing your hopes and aspirations. By writing out your principles, goals, and habits, pieces that make up the individual you are able to get it out of your busy mind and down on paper in front of you. This will allow you the opportunity to process each individual piece of information. Exercise. The goal for this chapter is to spend a few days reflecting on your daily habits and rituals. Keep a log of what you do throughout each day. If you recognize an activity or behavior as essential to your daily well-being, write it down. In addition, take time to write down activities or behaviors that you recognize as out of alignment with your goals. Once again, you might like to separate your habits into different categories. Observe your habits in the workplace and at home. Maybe you want to study the habitual behaviors you engage in while around family. Think about the time you wake up, what you eat, where you shop, who you spend your time with, how you talk to yourself, your inner dialogue, and how you communicate with other people. Think of the principles you value. Are your habits in line with those ideals? Be honest with yourself when you answer whether or not these practices align with your principles and goals. In order to become the best version of ourselves, we must be willing to face our shadow, our darkest self, including unhealthy habits that we have grown accustomed to. If you are not ready to directly examine your current flaws, you can always try reading this chapter again when you feel more ready.